For years, Sky Sports F1 and Martin Brundle have been at the centre of the F1 media narrative. And if one thing has become abundantly clear, it's their selective outrage when it comes to enforcing fair play in Formula One. Let's not mince words. When Verstappen's driving was edging on reckless aggression in 2021, often to the direct detriment of Lewis Hamilton, Brundle and the Sky Sports F1 team repeatedly made excuses. In their eyes, Verstappen was simply assertive or uncompromising, and they dismissed Hamilton's legitimate grievances and penalized him for defending his position, only to glorify Verstappen's dangerous tactics as a natural part of his racing style. But fast forward to 2024, and the hypocrisy is on full display. Suddenly, Brundle and the rest of Sky Sports have discovered that Verstappen's driving is problematic, labeling it as over the line and even dangerous. But what changed? Why was it acceptable, even commendable, in 2021 when it was Hamilton's championship at stake? But now it's unacceptable? This drastic shift isn't just hypocritical, it's shamelessly transparent. Brundle's newfound criticism of Verstappen is nothing but a transparent attempt to rewrite history, to save face now that Verstappen's recklessness is finally affecting other drivers. But my response to Brundle will be one of the phrases that he oh so loves to say himself. It's a day late and $1 short, I'm afraid.
And he was on the previous lap, and here goes Lewis Hamilton. He was last at the start of the sprint. He's trying to take the lead from Verstappen, but he is forced wide by Verstappen, and Verstappen himself has to go off the track. Did Verstappen drive Hamilton off the track?
He didn't run into him, but Mercedes will think that.
And he is gaining, and he is gaining, and he is gaining on Max Verstappen. He's going to go for the move here. Lewis Hamilton trying to get into the lead of the race. They go wheel to wheel into the first corner. Verstappen has to bail out. Lewis Hamilton has to bail out. Verstappen ends that sequence with a bigger lead over Lewis Hamilton.
Max doesn't like to yield, does he? He'll use any part of the racetrack.
It's got crazy now.
No investigation necessary, say the stewards.
The door's open, he's gone through it. He's kept completely within the white lines, and a car that was side by side with him is heading off down the road. I'll stand by that, but that's not what the stewards think. Here we go. Lando goes up the outside. That's fair enough, but actually, you know what? Max veered left towards him, didn't he? We'll see it from different angles, but here we go. Yeah, that's Max squeezing him out. I think Max will have to take the blame for that one, in my view. It looked as if Norris was trying to let him through, and he drove him off the racetrack.
And you can understand why the stewards have given that 10-second penalty, because they will have felt that what Max Verstappen did was dangerous.
But what about turn 7? I thought that was more dangerous.
Well,
it was much more dangerous.
The 2021 season was a season defined by relentless aggression from Verstappen, but even more so by the narrative spin from F1 media. Brundle, Sky Sports, and a large faction of the F1 establishment enabled Verstappen's antics with an alarming fervour. They twisted and distorted Verstappen's overly aggressive tactics into some kind of heroic charge, brushing aside his blatant disregard for the rules with phrases like, "That's just how Max races." It wasn't just a defence, it was an outright glorification of his tactics. They wanted a new champion, a next-gen face of the sport, and Verstappen fit the bill. Meanwhile, Hamilton's efforts to play by the rules were cast aside, his restraint perceived as a sign of weakness compared to Verstappen's so-called grit. Where was Brundle's supposed impartiality then? Why did he fail to acknowledge the numerous instances when Verstappen forced Hamilton off track or left him with no racing room? It's difficult to interpret his silence as anything other than selective bias, but the crazy thing about this was that he wasn't just silent, he was bloody defending Verstappen. At that time, any criticism of Verstappen was quickly brushed off with statements about the new generation or the nature of racing, and Brundle and his colleagues, in a sense, enabled Verstappen's behaviour by excusing it and perpetuating a narrative that rewarded aggression over sportsmanship. Their implicit message was clear: if you're aggressive enough and disregard the rules often enough, F1 will let it slide. Now in 2024, Verstappen's driving style remains largely the same, but Brundle's commentary has drastically changed. Recently, at the Mexican Grand Prix, Verstappen was penalized for not one but two dangerous moves against Lando Norris, but surprisingly to some, but not me, this time Brundle took issue, condemning Verstappen's actions and calling the driving dangerous and disappointing. He even said, I'm so in awe of Max, and I hate it when he does that sort of thing, because he's better than that. This is what he fully had to say about the situation post the Mexican Grand Prix. I had a feeling he would have something else coming his way. The first one was rude and cheeky. The second one was just plain dangerous. That's just about a full pit stop for a penalty. The second one I was particularly upset about, he said. This, Turn 4 incident, is all the squabble over apex and outside and inside, and he simply didn't leave racing room. He's just carried on the throttle and taken the pair of them off, and I think he's lucky he didn't get a drive-through penalty or something like that, actually. I'm so in awe of Max, and I hate it when he does that sort of thing, because he's better than that. He's too good to drive like that. I honestly think that was a short fuse red mist. I'm sorry, but this is the very essence of hypocrisy. Everything Brundle critiqued in Mexico could easily apply to Verstappen's behavior throughout the 2021 season. But in 2021, Brundle had no problem dismissing such actions, choosing to criticize Hamilton's responses instead. It's almost as if now that Verstappen's actions aren't serving a particular narrative, and now that he's in the position of defending his dominance rather than toppling a reigning champion, Brundle has suddenly discovered the ethical issues with his driving. Why? Because Verstappen's aggression no longer benefits Sky Sports storylines. Now that Hamilton isn't the primary target of Verstappen's questionable tactics, suddenly Brundle and Sky Sports are willing to criticize it. They are bending with the wind, trying to reframe the narrative as if they hadn't spent years enabling the very behaviors they now call reckless. One can't ignore the potential underlying biases that may have influenced the 2021 coverage. Was there an agenda to prevent Hamilton from reaching that record-breaking 8th championship title? The media's stark favoritism in 2021 certainly suggests so. Hamilton, the only black driver in F1 history and a 7-time world champion, stood on the brink of making F1 history, and yet week after week, the F1 mediasphere, including Brundle, seemed all too eager to downplay Hamilton's achievements and laud Verstappen's aggression as though it was some sort of refreshing change. Was this bias conscious or unconscious? It's impossible to say, but the optics are damning. Sky Sports F1 and the broader F1 media appeared remarkably unified in their support for Verstappen, turning a blind eye to rule-breaking because it suited their interests. If Hamilton had won in 2021, it would have cemented his legacy beyond dispute, marking him as the greatest driver the sport had ever seen. But instead, Brundle and company played along with the narrative that aggression and rule-bending were not only acceptable, but admirable, so long as it meant stopping Hamilton. Sky Sports, Martin Brundle, and the F1 media have now backed themselves into a corner. Their inaction in 2021 has unleashed a monster in Verstappen, a driver who now genuinely believes he can do no wrong on the track, and by refusing to criticize him in 2021, they tacitly encouraged Verstappen to continue disregarding the rules. They wanted a new champion so desperately that they looked the other way, as Verstappen pushed boundaries beyond all reason. Now, years later, they're forced to reckon with the monster they created. But the damage is done. Verstappen, emboldened by years of unchallenged antics, continues his unchecked aggression. Brundle and Sky Sports can't just wash their hands of this now. They played a major role in fostering this environment, and their belated criticism in 2024 only highlights the cowardice of their prior silence. They failed the sport and its fans by not upholding the principles of fair play when it mattered. Red Bull's Christian Horner, Verstappen's biggest enabler, only adds fuel to the fire. Time and again, Horner has defended Verstappen's actions, no matter how egregious, and in Mexico, rather than offering even a semblance of accountability, he came armed with telemetry data to defend Verstappen's outrageous moves. And while no one expects a team principal to publicly throw his driver under the bus, Horner's constant defenses contribute to the problem. Verstappen's mindset, this belief that he can do no wrong, comes directly from the unwavering support Horner has consistently provided. Jenson Button deserves his own critique here. He too appeared pleased after the 2021 season concluded in Verstappen's favor, offering little sympathy for Hamilton or acknowledgement of the controversial nature of that season's finale. Yet, now that Verstappen's aggression is affecting drivers like Norris, Button is suddenly speaking up about the need for rule changes, and this convenient shift only further underscores the inconsistency and hypocrisy within the F1 media. In 2024, the consequences of F1's selective outrage and media hypocrisy have finally come home to roost. The F1 media, including Sky Sports and Martin Brundle, must now face the uncomfortable truth. They have nurtured this chaotic state of affairs. They allowed Verstappen to get away with reckless driving in 2021 to fulfill a narrative, and now they're stuck with the monster they so eagerly defended. So, to Brundle, Sky Sports, and the broader F1 media, lay in the bed you made. You endorsed Verstappen's reckless style when it suited you, and now you must contend with the fallout. Your newfound criticism doesn't erase your blatant hypocrisy or absolve you of responsibility for the chaotic state of F1's competitive integrity. You've created this mess and you have no one to blame but yourselves.